In Lesson 7, our final unit in this lesson, we're going to talk about dividing with exponents. So remember, when we talked about multiplying exponents with the same base, that what we did was simply add their exponents. So 5 to the third times 5 to the first would be 5 to the third plus 1, or 5 to the fourth. And if we had something like 5 to the third times 5 to the negative fourth, we'd do the same thing. 5 to the 3 plus negative 4, which would give us 5 to the negative 1. And of course, if you'll remember, we have to get rid of our negative exponent, so that would be 1 over 5. But what happens when we divide exponents? What do we do with our exponents when they have the same base, but instead of multiplying them, we're dividing them? Well, the short answer is that we simply subtract them. Let's see why we're going to subtract them. So let's take the example there of 5 to the third over 5 to the first. Let's begin by writing these out in factor form. 5 times 5 times 5 over 5. We've got 3 5s in the top and 1 in the bottom. Now I can also write that out as 5 over 5 by taking these two and grouping them together. And then I can write the other ones out as 5 over 1. So this would be 5 over 1. And this would be 5 over 1 also right here. Now very quickly, when I look at it this way, it becomes apparent that what is 5 divided by 5? It is 1. 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. Now the other two are simply times 5, right? So 5 over 1 is 5, right there. And 5 over 1 is 5. So I wind up with 1 times 5, which is equal to 25. What is 25 in exponential form using 5s there? Well, 5 to the second gives me 25. So let's look at this and the relationship to this. 5 to the third over 5 to the first. Well, if I take 5 to the third and I subtract the 1 from 5 to the first, I get 5 to the second. And that's the basics for how we're going to do this. We're just going to subtract, which ultimately means we're kind of canceling these guys out. We're canceling one out and leaving whatever's left over. Now let's take a look at a couple of examples. Just like in the former example, we're going to subtract these exponents. So 7 to the 6 over 7 to the fourth is going to be 7 to the 6 minus 4, which is 7 to the second, or in standard form, 49. What about this one? Well, remember, we're just going to follow the rules that we've learned. These are all rules that we've already learned. Now on the top, we've got 3x quantity raised to the negative fourth power. So everything inside these parentheses is being raised to the negative fourth. And with negative exponents, you'll recall that anytime we have a negative exponent, we're going to push it to the opposite side of the fraction bar. So in this case, it's on top. We're going to push it down. And what will that leave us on top? Well, nothing. So we're going to keep our 1 there. So that's going to be a 1. And then we'll have 2x to the third here. That'll still be there. It hasn't moved at all, and it doesn't have a negative exponent. And then we'll bring 3x to the negative fourth down below and raise it to the positive fourth. So those are all rules from our negative exponents. Then we'll continue our work. We got 1 still here on the top. That's not going to change. And then we're going to raise 3x to the fourth power. So we'll have 2x to the third, and we'll raise 3x to the fourth power. That's going to be 3 to the fourth power times x to the fourth power. That, in turn, will give us 1 over 2x to the third. And what's 3 to the fourth? Well, 3 to the third is 27. 3 to the fourth, then, would be 81. 2x to the third times 81 times x to the fourth. Now we can combine all of these numbers. We can multiply 2 times 81. That's going to give us 162. And then we'll take x to the third and multiply it times x to the fourth, which means we add the exponents here, which will give us x to the seventh. 162x to the seventh is our answer. Let's try this one. 2 to the fourth over 2 to the seventh. Once again, we know that we're going to subtract those. So that's 2 to the fourth minus 7. You can't just subtract 7 minus 4. You have to take 4 minus 7, which means we are going to have a negative exponent because 4 minus 7 is negative 3. And we don't want to keep our negative exponents. We want to get rid of those. We want to make them positive. And how do we do that? We take them and put them on the opposite side of the fraction bar. Right now, the fraction bar is here, and there's an implied 1 underneath. We are going to put that 1 on the top. We're going to take the reciprocal. We're going to put the 2 to the negative 3 down on the bottom, except we're going to keep our positive 3 here. We're going to get rid of the negative and make it positive. And then, if we want to write it in standard form, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 1 over 8.